Hi, this is Jeffrey Golden with a book talk on meeting the needs of second language learners and educators guide by Judith Muzzle Hurley. The book's purpose pretty much just informed the reader about many different ways to teach ELL students and the background of ELL students. So the organization of the book starts off with describing ELL student, like what ELL students are, that they come from somewhere else, whether it be Mexico or Canada or somewhere in Africa, Europe. It doesn't matter where. They don't know English. They're here, and we try and teach them English. And talking about how like their background is very important with how they learn, and that we need to understand that. And the second chapter is what we need to know as educators. So it goes even more into the background what of the students. So whether they're in poor background, like how we need to handle that, or just everything we need for teaching the student in like English, but still incorporating what they knew and how they'll most likely be successful learning. And the third topic was teacher understanding, which is about many different programs and like different ways for us to be able to communicate and teach the students. So some of the ways is like a cooperative learning, where I'll talk about later, but it's pretty much the students are together with ELL students and non-ELL students, learning together, taking the language off of each other, and learning a little bit faster that way. But it goes also into other things like additive and subtractive environments. So a lot of schools, at least here in Arizona, are like subtractive environments for ELL students, because we forget about their old language, we can't use it, we can only use English, and it's just a lot harder for students to actually learn and pick up English through that way, and they also start forgetting their home language from that. Well, additive environments and learning styles actually incorporate the home language and just keep adding English to it, and like referencing what each thing is between each other, making it easier for students to learn and be successful in English learning. The next chapter was about language politics. So it's pretty much about like how important teachers are in politics, of how we choose. We pretty much decide the governor or president, because if they're not so into education, then we're super against them. And because we were very passionate about education, we're trying to get our education to keep growing. At least here in Arizona, it's subpar, to say the least. And we push to hopefully get someone in office who knows what they're doing and who can actually support us and get us what we need to help our students. The last chapter was a fact chapter. So it was just a bunch of questions people asked the author, and she put them in the book, so that because we'll all probably have a question in there or something similar to it, so we already get an answer to the said question in the book, instead of having to find somewhere else to find the information. It's all just right there in the book. So one of the things I learned from this book was using student culture and learning. So one thing I talked about was using cultural influences of the student. So let's say they're from Mexico, and for me, since I'm a music person, I would play like mariachi at the beginning of the year to help teach them like what we're doing. Like, hey look, this score note, it's equals this in mariachi. And sorry about that. Uh, about it's about using, so like I would use like, hey, this is a quarter note, and this is what it means in a mariachi. See, it's and keep doing stuff like that, or like different phrases, or like, hey, look, if this instrument, it's from this, the mariachi or something of that essence. Another thing I talked about was incorporating cultural importance. So let's say it's a poor family, and one of the kids gets like strips their knee on the playground, and their family is like there, like ready to take care of them. The book suggested that we take the entire family to the nurse's office so that they can see the wound like get washed off and get bandaged, so that they feel more comfortable and happy about the place that they're in. And also this Pobrecito model, which is kind of what it is used in Arizona, of you only use English, and that's how they'll learn the best that way. But it's just not. It's a subtractive environment. It doesn't help the students. It actually hinders them a little bit more than all the other different programs this book covers. One of those programs is two-way immersion, so it uses the home language and the new language. So you have the ELL students and you have the ELL students, and you teach them using both their home language and English. So in Arizona, it would be primarily Spanish and English. So you kind of cross-reference each the languages to help them learn better and help them understand what words mean. And it can also have variety in the classroom, so you could have ELL and non-ELL students. So you can help them both learn you can help both of them learn more together instead of keeping them separate and then ELL students slowly falling behind. The third thing I learned was cooperative grouping, which is it pretty much takes the way immersion, but to an even higher level of now it's more geared to like group work of the students, so they're learning the language off of each other instead of mainly just from you, which is really interesting and really cool in my opinion, because it's kind of similar to like for music, you kind of do that a lot to help the kids like help each other learning as like, oh, this is how you start reading the music and whatnot, instead of having to drill it into them. They're kind of working it out for themselves while we're there to help support them. And one standard this works on is the ninth one. The book's all about ideas about making a comfortable environment and atmosphere for ELL students so that they can adapt and have more chances of success learning English and being successful in education. It's also this book also talks a lot about the first standard, because it's all about helping. It's all about designing ways to help ELL students, and it goes over everything about ELL students, their background, their culture, and how we need to be like conscious about that when we're teaching them. And it also works in the second standard, where it incorporates their culture and creates a welcoming environment where everyone like continues growing together instead of having ELL class and the non-ELL class, and then slowly they just start getting farther and farther separated because we think that they're not as smart when they really are. It's just they're adapting to the language at the same time. I would rate the book 3 out of 5 because it's a really great book covering everything about ELL students and everything that they go through, everything we need to be conscious about. The only reason I say 3 out of 5 though is because it's not really about teaching strategies we can implement. It's more about programs and resources for us to be able to take to our districts to change how we teach ELL students and make it even better for them and make it more successful atmosphere for them to grow and be successful in education. I hope this presentation was useful. I hope you enjoyed your time.